Good day, people. Well, I'm down here in my basement office where I do a lot of writing, reading, things like that. But today it's also going to double as a workshop because I've got to do some gluing on this rocker that my wife bought, and it's just too cold outside. It's best to, when you're using yellow glues or things like wood glue, which I'll be using, you need it to be really above 50 Fahrenheit, and it's not. In fact, it's below 20 Fahrenheit outside, and probably hovering right around 20 or 25 Fahrenheit in my garage, so not warm enough. And I don't have a heater out there, so here we are. This chair she bought on Facebook Marketplace. You can tell it's actually been refinished. It looks really nice, but when she bought it, they of course said you're gonna have to do some gluing on it because the spindles are loose, and they are. In fact, they are popping out. These aren't, so they don't look so bad. It's because I just tapped it back in, but a lot of them look like that. But you can tell things are moving. The good news is that all of the joints underneath the seat appear to be super tight. So I think all of that's going to be good down there. Seat itself is good. You just have to get these arms in place, glued tight. There's actually a screw on the back side of each one of these arms. So I'll pop those out, and I'll take the back off. All of these spindles are loose, and across the top there's a couple of on the ends that are loose, and maybe one or two of these, but for the most part that's all good. So I'll be basically removing it from this and gluing it, but I'm going to start with disassembling it and then work on these arms. Now, clamping force is going to be a bit of an issue because the rocking chair, these don't go straight in, right? They actually angle out like this on either side, and then of course the back is at an angle as well, and it sort of wraps. So they're shaped differently, and that means that getting the physics just right and the geometry just right when it comes to clamping is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So I'm not sure that my straight clamps are going to work all that great. So I'm going to try a couple of different things. I brought in to the house, well, this little dead blow so I can kind of tap the pieces back together. I brought in some ratchet straps and rubber stretchers. I may try some of that because they're flexible, and I can maybe monkey with them on the angles to make it work here to get just the right geometry for clamping force. And then my neighbor, who actually does quite a bit of woodwork, just recommended masking tape. He said if you can get them set where you want them, you can actually just put some tape strands in different areas, and because it's flexible, right? So and he said it's strong enough to hold. This is actually painter's tape, but he thought it would work if I use enough strips of it. So that's going to be the idea today, is just to try to, I think, get this apart, and then see about how, before I start gluing, actually just see about how I might be able to get enough clamping force to hold things where they need to be held while the glue dries. I won't glue it all at once today. I'll start with the arms, and once those are dry and in place and solid, then I'll start working these spindles back here and taking those and getting those glued in down into the seat and positioned. So I think that's the way I'm going to approach it anyways. And worst case, if I have to blow it back apart and re-glue some stuff, that's what I'll do. looks like somebody used a drywall screw capping that. Camera's not really focusing on it. Anyways, but I think you can get the idea. Now I'm going to label those so that I don't put them back in the wrong place. Alright, I got this blown apart from the top down. You can see the backs over here. There were more across the top that were loose than I originally had thought, so I will glue those spindles in individually. What I may end up doing is actually getting these in place across the bottom back of this chair, and then take that top piece off and glue it on separately. We'll see. I'll mess around with that a little bit. The arms were loose, so I took those off at the base here, obviously, but then they were loose here as well. The one in the middle here was not quite as loose as I thought, but it did move, and if it moves, it's a squeak. So I went ahead and just kind of pried it out of there, so no big deal. Same thing on this side over here. These were all actually both loose here. I did have to work a little bit here on this one, but the big ones were actually already loose. This chair from here down is actually in really good tight shape, so I'm not going to mess with anything with the rockers or these legs down here. I'm just going to get this fixed up here. Okay, so I've taken my painter's tape actually, and I've labeled everything. You know, when you take things apart, it's easy in the moment to remember where they came from, right? But when you take a couple of days to work on something, sometimes it can get a little confusing. I do also have the advantage of witness marks that I can line up, but I just thought I would give myself a little bit of help there so I can remember where everything goes. So what I'm going to do now is, just off camera, I'm going to mess around with different styles of clamping and things like that, see what works best. And once I have that figured out, I'll begin the gluing process with the arms and see how that goes. In fact, I may even just do, well, I don't know. I'll try it. What I'm not sure about yet is if I want to put it all together and assemble it in the chair. So glue these joints, put it together, kind of screw that back screw in again, actually get new ones, probably use actual wood screws. Rather than these drywall screws that I think they were using before, which are now rusted out, by the way. So I haven't decided yet if it's best to kind of, you know, reassemble all that and somehow clamp it all at once, or if I want to do the spindles first and then put it in the chair and glue it and clamp it. So I'll figure all that out, what I think works best, and then I'll get started on the gluing process. Well, as I was kind of fooling around here, guess what I realized? These joints are loose. So I may have to, sorry about that, I may have to figure out a way to blow this apart and glue it as well. So anyways, that one's loose, back one at the seat, and also that front one. Dang it. Alright, I've blown the seat off. I didn't think I was going to have to do that, but I do, because these were loose. Turned out to be loose. So what I've done here is I took my knife and cleaned off any excess old glue, kind of scraped it up, and then I actually took some sandpaper and sanded this and kind of prepped it to go back together with the seat here. So I'll drip a little glue down into those holes, set this back on, and tap it in with a little dead blow I've got. And then what I think I'll do until this dries, or give it maybe 20 or 30 minutes before I try to do anything else, is I'll flip it back over once I have the seat on it. And then, I don't know if you noticed, but I have lots of books that I can set right on the seat of this and just apply some downward force on it, and that should hold it into place. And as the glue dries, we should be good. I guess there's only one way to know, and that's to give it a shot. Alright, we'll let that dry and set up for a little bit. Hopefully that's got enough weight on it. Those are all boxes full of books. Alright, so you can see that I've got the boxes off of the top of the chair, taking the weight off of it. I had it on there for about 20 minutes, just about long enough to let that wood glue to set up a little bit. So my next goal here in reassembling this chair is to get the arm back on this. I guess it'd be the left side if you're sitting down in it. So the interesting thing here about this is that this hole does not go clear through. This one does, and this one does. So this will only have glue around the outer edge of the spindles, whereas this one will actually sit down in there and have some glue pulled in around it. So I want to make sure to get enough around the outsides of the arms, kind of smeared around here well. By the way, I've taken sandpaper and I've gone around these. The top bits into the arm have to be glued in as well. So we'll get those taken care of. And this one actually screws in the back of that arm right there, but then it has the top piece fastened to it. So I'm going to try to get at least these in here. And I might go ahead and do the other side, because the trouble I'm running into here is thinking about a way to get some clamping force on that to hold those tight while the glue sets up. So what I may do is do both sides, stick a piece of wood across the two of them, and then set one of the boxes, or maybe those two smaller ones, on top of that, just to kind of hold them into place. What I'm worried about though is that because these are angled out on either side, what I'm worried about is that it'll kind of splay out too far, and then when I go to put the back piece on, I'll have to really, pry on some things and potentially loosen these if I'm not careful. So that's what I'm working through right now. Also, I've gone ahead and chipped out all the old glue that was down in these holes in the back. I will, on the piece over there, rough those up with some sandpaper before I put them back in. There's a few on this end down here that I'm going to have to reglue as well, but anyhow, working on it, so we'll see how it goes. Alright, I've not glued anything. This is actually a dry fit and just a test run, but I'm wondering if I could just, instead of trying to use clamps, if I could just use gravity and provide downward force in that regard, use it to my advantage. So the board that you see here is actually the leaf out of our table, dining room table. I've got both of the arm pieces in, and I've got all these things in here, and of course the back pieces, and I've done that for both sides. Again, just dry fit. But anyways, then I got them all how they were supposed to be returned and glued in, using witness marks and whatever else to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to go. And I laid that board across there, and then I went ahead and put a box of books up on there. And I'm just wondering if that would be good enough. I think that's what I'm going to end up having to do. So let me pull all this back apart, and then you can I'll show you my process of getting it all glued back together and put back together, and then we'll do something like this to get it drying and get that glue setting up. Okay, just to give you a different perspective on what I need to do here before I set that box of books across the top of this, I'm going to, on this left arm, I've got the piece screwed back together with new screws, wood screws, so that's good. I'm going to, instead of drywall screws I should say, I'll glue this back in there, and I'll glue this back in there. Once I have those secured and kind of lined up the way they go, I'll glue down in here. Now here's the thing, again, as I showed you before, this only glues just on the outside surface of this. It doesn't sit down and glue. As you can see, this goes all the way through. This little dowel actually does sit down in a pocket, and then this one in the back also just around the outside surface area. I'll smear glue in here, and I'll smear glue on the dowels themselves, and secure everything back in there. I'll take this one off, which is just dry fit right now, and do the exact same thing. Then I'll put that leaf from our table across here, and I'll put some towels over each arm to sort of protect it, and then that'll provide some downward force as the glue sets up. And I'm basically, you know, you all know that I'm a farm kid, and I'm doing this DIY kind of farm style, which is I don't have a lot of fancy tools, but I'm going to use whatever I can to make it work. So here we go. Okay, well, there's that part. So, put the back pieces on the inside here. Got all those glued. Also put the handle, or the armrest, sorry. Same on this side. I've wiped off the excess glue. And now I've just got that downward force weight on it. I'll let it set up for about, probably I'll give this one about 30 minutes or so, and we'll see how it feels. Well, welcome back to my quote-unquote workshop, which, as I mentioned earlier in the video, is my home office, which is in the basement of my house. Been working on this chair, and last you saw it, it had a board across here, and it had boxes of books on top of it holding down, putting some downward force, because I had glued these bits in. Now, here's the good news. This side feels really good and sturdy. Here's the not so good news. This side, the right side, feels really good and sturdy. But you can see, didn't quite get down in there as far as I would like to have. At least even as far as where the witness mark is. But it's in there, and it's solid. I'm going to leave it and see what happens. Or, you know, when I start working on the back, if that doesn't line up right and these don't fit down in the holes far enough, I don't know. I may just blast that back out and reglue it and do it again. So, anyways. But I've started working on the back. And what I've been doing now is just scraping off the old glue from these dowels or these spindles. This one's not quite done yet, but you can see got some old glue on there that has to come off. Really, for these things to go down in the holes and glue strongly, I just like to have all that old junk out of there. So then my plan is to glue the tops. I'll glue these actually. These still need to be cleaned as well. These are just dry fit. And I'll glue these in. I'll flip it over and I'll put it into place up here, and all the dowels down into, or the spindles down into their holes here, and get them all glued at once. And then I have to also figure out how I'm going to clamp that, which should be interesting. But I don't know, maybe a ratchet strap, some rubber stretchers, I don't know. I'll get creative. Like I said, farm kid DIY. Alright, let's go. So this one, what I've labeled number 5, is tight. It's not loose at all. So I think I'll actually just leave that one there. The rest of these all came out. And I've got all that old glue cleaned up off of these now. So what I'll do next is I'll take some sandpaper, prep those for glue. I've already gone through the holes in the back and cleaned out, chipped out all of the old glue, sucked it out with a vacuum cleaner. So my next step will be to get out the glue, start gluing these in here. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm just taking a little bit of sandpaper and I'm going to go around these areas where there's bare wood on both ends of these dowels, or these dowels look like pool cues. And then I'm going to take some tack cloth and get all the dust off of them just to get it prepped for glue. Okay, so I'm going to do that on each one of these, and I'm going to do it off camera so you don't have to watch too much more boring stuff. And once I start getting things glued back together, I'll let you know. Okay, so I'm getting ready to glue these spindles back into the top of the chair back. I have all these numbered on tape there. I'm not sure you can see it, but it starts over here with 1, comes over here to 6. Number 5, what I have labeled as number 5, does not come out. It stayed solid, so I didn't pry it out. I didn't break it loose or anything like that. It feels like it's still got a pretty secure bond. So my next step here will be for each one of these, now that I've gotten them sanded down, I got old glue scraped off, I'm going to put some glue down in the hole, but then also around these little dowels or spindles, put them back down in there. And what I need to do, let's see if I can show this to you up close. So I was messing around here with number 2, but you can kind of see the witness marks on these. These are not all the way in, but I'll glue them and I'll get them to where they're back flush with where they were, and then wipe off any excess glue and things like that. Once I have done that, my next step will be to flip it over, put it back into the chair across the top on these two posts sticking up, align all the dowels or spindles down into their holes there, which I'll fill with glue. I'll also go ahead and wipe a little glue around the bare wood of these, and then stick them down in there. Then my challenge will be to figure out what kind of clamping force I can get on this, because it's angled, right? So I don't know. I may end up using rubber stretchers or something like that. Not 100% sure yet, but I don't think I'll be able to stack any boxes of books on top of that. So, yeah, I'll let you know how it goes. And then, like I said, number 5 was tight already, so I did not take number 5 out. pretty good about that. Alright, next up, let's get it plugged in. Let me get you down in here a little closer. I'll show you what I got. So this all looks pretty good. It's pretty tight. A little extra glue there. A little extra glue there. That should dry clear. This one is a little bit disturbing. It doesn't quite have as much coming up out of it, but it's not moving either. Let's see here. These, that needs to be wiped off a little bit, but these all look pretty good. Sorry about the camera handling here. So now my challenge will be how do I get some clamping force or downward force on the back of that while that glue sets up. I'm going to mess around with that off camera. If I figure something out, I'll come back on and show you. Okay, check it out. I actually did use rubber stretchers, and they actually work pretty well. So wrap some rags around up here just to protect the wood. Also use the edge of towel down there so you can kind of see. I basically just drew it down to that cross brace support there, hooked it right on. Of course, again, use the towel to sort of protect the wood, and it's holding it down. It's holding it pretty tight. So I'm gonna let that go for about 20-30 minutes, and then let it set up, and we'll go from there. All right. Oh yeah. Hear that? Actually, you shouldn't hear that. That's the sound of no creaking. I can hear just the tiniest little bit, but I think every wooden antique rocker probably should make just the tiniest little bit of noise. But the rest of this turned out actually pretty good. I'm happy. So we'll let the glue cure up for now overnight, and I'll place it back up where it goes. And I'm going to go ahead and close down this video as well. Hopefully the things that I've done here were helpful to somebody. I'm just a farm kid who's got to use his phalanges every now and then because it's part of my DNA. My day job is it's a thinking job. I use my brain a lot, so I enjoy putting these kinds of videos together. Anyways, check out my other videos that I've posted if you'd like to, and yeah, give me some feedback on this. I'm sure that someone out there has a better way of doing some of the things that I did. I'm just using what I had at hand and don't have all kinds of fancy clamps or anything like that, but I think the glue job's pretty solid, so overall I'm pleased with it. Alright, take care.